Good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to host you here for an hour. I know that an hour is a long time, so I'll try to be sufficiently entertaining as we move forward. So, what we usually do every year here at CES, it's not only we summarize the past year and the outlook of the next year, but also try to provide insight that we gather throughout the year about how the future is going to unfold in our business. And our business is both driving assist and autonomous driving. So I'll start with kind of 2018 in numbers. We had a very good year with 24 OEMs, together with 8 tier 1 partners of us. About 16 of them were in China, so China is becoming a major area for us. We had 20 program launches over 78 vehicle models. So things are very, very lively, not only on winning business for the future, but also launching at the present. With IQ4, it's our latest system on chip. 7 models were launched during 2018 with IQ4. So the IQ4 in itself is a very, very powerful chip, but it also hosts much more advanced algorithms that we could host in the past. For example, the BMW at the Intel keynote has a very, very advanced driving assist, has three cameras in front, different fields of view, leveraging both the wide field of view and narrow field of view, all feeding into IQ4 chip and providing functions that industry first functions. And the last number here is 56 vehicle models that have advanced functions, and then the list of functions is down there. So we're not talking only about basic driving assist or driving assist only to win star ratings. We're talking about very advanced features that are coming into the market, that are generating more and more value to customers beyond safety. And we see here from this number of 56 models that there is significant traction for these. 2018 is the number of IQ chips that we shipped, and we can see that about 42% year-on-year growth from 2017. Or if we look back to 2014, and we chose the year 2014, that was the year where we floated the company for an IPO. We see a consistent figure of 46%. And then the total number of IQ chips that have been shipped from the past decade is 32 million. So it means 32 million cars powered by Mobileye's technology. Euro NCAP 5 stars. So this year there were about 16 models that received 5 stars. 13 of them had a Mobileye inside. So this shows that our leadership. This is the BMW system that I mentioned with the 3 cameras powered by IQ4. The kinds of features that we're providing there, vehicle detection from any angle. This is the 3D VD. Motorcycles are also detected in 3D. Automatic emergency braking through turn. So if you're approaching a junction and another vehicle comes oncoming and turns, the system detects it and will provide braking to avoid an accident. Traffic light detection and features around traffic light detection. The system can also estimate relevancy of traffic light, which is a very, very difficult function. And all sorts of junction support using the wide by this wide field of view function. The tier 1 partner here was ZF. It was a very, very interesting journey to make this happen. So when we look at how things look into the future, so we'll start kind of in baby steps. With Volkswagen, we have announced moving towards level 2+. So level 2+ is a very interesting notion of what can we do to elevate driving assist if we add map content to the functions. So specifically with Volkswagen, we announced 2 years ago that we'll be using Volkswagen Fleet to harvest data for the maps using our technology. Other car makers that we have contracts in that area. So all this data that is being sent to the cloud and is being harvested, we build maps automatically around it. And then the level 2 plus is the idea is that if we can send this map back to the car, how can we elevate driving assist and provide more value? So for example, if you are driving, you're using lane keeping assist, and you're in an area where the lane marks are weak or the lane marks are non-existent because you're on an urban road, the map data still has the drivable path because that path was driven by many, many cars, and all those cars sent data to the cloud for us doing the map building process. So we can support lane keeping assist even in areas that don't have lane marks. We know about traffic much higher ACC, adaptive cruise control functionality. So all of this we call level 2 plus, and with Volkswagen, we are now working towards equipping cars that are already launching in 2019 with an EyeQ4 that short time later, could be early 2020, but short time later could start using the map that has been harvested using the production vehicles of Volkswagen. With Great Wall Motors in China, we established a major contract with about 7 million units over life, going from basic driving assist to level 2 plus, level 3, level 4 in China. And you know, in China, the OEMs comes in several categories and local Chinese, and there are the domestic Chinese OEMs that manufacture their own cars. So Great Wall Motors is one of those that manufacture their own cars. And for us, penetration in China is to kind of gather as much partners as those, because with the joint ventures, we already have the business through the Western tier OEMs that we work with. If we look about the global trend of driving assist, what we see here is the percentage of points that ADAS is gathering in the car, and you see that it's rising as we look forward in time. For 2016, it was about 13%. 2018, it's about 26.5%. Means that driving assist is gaining more and more momentum. It's not stagnating in a certain set of functions and that's it. It's evolving, and its weight in the car is also evolving. The weight is getting bigger and bigger. So I think this slide is a very important slide. It's not that flashy, but it contains an important insight that I'll try to provide more details as I go forward with this presentation. It shows our overall strategy. So we have two activities. We have autonomous driving activity, which I'll show you many more examples and more details in this presentation. And we have the driving assistant activity, and as main. And there are two arrows here. One is how driving assist helps us in our activity on autonomous driving, and it's basically component qualification. So for example, if we have a function of pedestrian detection or a function of vehicle detection, it is qualified over so many miles, data acquired by many OEM partners, such that we can reach qualification levels that are really unprecedented in terms of the amount of mileage used in order to qualify those functions. And those functions, now they migrate towards the autonomous driving activity. So this is one arrow. The other arrow, going from autonomous driving back to driving assist, is that any function we develop as part of our autonomous driving activity, we think, how can that? Now, in driving assist, we have a very strong constraint, and that is constraint of cost. Driving assist is a volume production enterprise. In volume production, cost is a king. Every cent matters. You cannot put exotic sensors that cost thousands of dollars. I'm not talking about tens of thousands of dollars. Even thousands of dollars is a killer. In driving assist, you have to think in terms of hundreds of dollars. That's it. If you try thinking beyond that, you are not living in this planet. Right? So how do we go and migrate technologies from autonomous driving, and where cost there is not an issue, at least not for our competitors. So where cost is not an issue, and migrating it towards driving assist, where cost is a very, very big issue. And we have a very important insight, is when you think about the revolutions, there are two types of revolutions that people tend to coalesce them into one bucket. One revolution is a revolution of transportation. And that's the revolution really promoted by autonomous driving. The way people will be moved will be disrupted using autonomous driving. The way smart cities, the way cities would be planned will be disrupted using autonomous driving, less parking lots and so forth. So autonomous driving, the message here is a revolution of transportation. But there's another revolution, and that revolution is saving lives. Right? Now, people tend to associate autonomous driving also with the revolution of saving lives. That means if all cars will be autonomous, then, but I'll not be standing here when all cars will be autonomous. Right? So, on the other hand, driving assist, has begun a revolution of saving lives. And the point that I'm making here, that it has not finished that revolution. We can create the right science, and then I'll show that towards the end of this presentation. We can create the right science in which we can create a horizon of a truly vision zero using just driving assist. Truly vision zero means that the probability of a fatality, the probability of an accident, if all cars would have that particular driving assist that I'll talk about, will be negligible. So we're trying to separate those two revolutions. The revolutions of saving lives can evolve through ADAS, and the revolution of transportation would be the area of autonomy, because then you can start thinking what technologies you need for each. Okay? So as I go on through this presentation, I'll add more and more meat, more and more content to this slide. Okay? So when you look about our solution, these are the pillars. We have visual perception and sensor fusion. It's all about data coming in from sensors, cameras, radars, LiDARs into high-performance computing, and building a environmental model, 360 degrees environmental model, where all the road users are located, what they're doing, drivable paths, traffic lights, traffic signs, and so forth. Right? So this is the perception. Then there's the compute platform. You need compute platform to support this huge amount of computing, and you need power consumption, and of course very efficient in terms of cost. Then there is driving policy and RSS. I'll define what RSS is in a moment. Driving policy is all about making decisions. So once the car understands its environment, it needs to make decisions. When to change lane, how to change lane, plan a trajectory, execute the trajectory using control, make sure that your decisions are safe, that are not going to lead to an accident. This is about the RSS, the responsibility sensitive safety. I'll say a few words about it later. How to reach a balance between safety and agility, because you can be completely safe by not moving. So if you are moving, you are creating issues of whether is that your decisions are not going to create an accident. So this is all about RSS. And then the fourth pillar is about mapping. Autonomous cars needs maps, needs high definition maps. How do you go and create them? How do you update them? This is a technology that we introduced 3 years ago, and it's evolving, and I'll show you all about it as we move forward. So when we look at the value nodes, what you see here is 5 value nodes that we're working on. So the one at the left is silicon only. This is silicon that Intel provides. We also, our IQ5 also comes within a programmable environment that third parties can write code on it. So this is not only IQ5, it's all our chip generations, IQ4, IQ3. This is the node that we exist today when we do driving assist. It's a system. It's a chip plus all the software that runs the application. Then the third value node is it's a silicon plus software, but now we're talking about not only front sensing but surround sensing, where you have cameras around the car. It's a component in autonomous driving, but I'll also promote the idea that should be a component also in driving assist, and I'll explain why. The next two value nodes are really focused on autonomous driving, where we're looking at a multi-domain controller, either dealing only with the perception control. And the fifth value node is being part of a complete full stack, including mobility as a service. So being a player in the mobility as a service domain, not only a player in providing the technology for mobility as a service, but being a player, an actor in the mobility service domain, meaning being an actor in moving people. That's also a value node that we are targeting, and we have made substantive progress in that area as well. So this is to keep in mind when I'm talking about how the technology progresses. It's on all those five value nodes. So let's talk about visual perception. I'm not going to show you any clips about visual perception. I've been showing that for years. I think we have about the principles. The principle that we have here is that we want to reach what we call true redundancy. In an autonomous driving system, everything you do should be done in multiple ways in order to create redundancy. And the ideal way is to create completely redundant subsystems. So one subsystem, which we know can be done, because human drivers are a proof of concept that it can be done, is a complete camera subsystem. And this is why our first part of our activity is all focused around cameras. It's not that because we think that in production, only a camera system will suffice to power autonomous driving. We know that you need other sensors. But start with only a camera system in order to create this complete redundancy later, that you can add radar alone, can do a full stack, can power an autonomous car in a full stack manner. Now, this is difficult, and no one else is doing that because it is difficult. Why it is difficult? When you look at a camera does not provide you direct 3D information. All the 3D information you get from a camera is indirect. It's through perspective cues, motion cues, right? For example, the fact that we have two eyes, it's not that because it gives us 3D. Right? The baseline is too small. It's the distance between our eyes is only for hand-reaching distances when we want to do tooling, very, very fine motion. But for understanding our environment, 1 meter ahead, it's not the stereo that works. You shut one eye, nothing happens, right? So all our because if you want to do control, you have to place all your detections in 3D. Now, to do it with the camera becomes very, very tricky because the camera doesn't provide you 3D information. So what that creates, it creates kind of a lazy state of mind from a developer standpoint. A lazy state of mind would be, let's use the cameras for detection in the image space because it has high resolution, and then use other sensors like laser scanners, radars, which give us direct 3D information in order to fuse this at the low level. Right? The problem with this is that you don't get redundancy anymore. So you really need to tackle the difficult problems. Try to do everything just with cameras. Solve this problem of how do you place things accurately in 3D that is good enough to do safe control and smooth control through redundancy. So this is our philosophy. It's not that our philosophy is that everything will be powered only by cameras. We understand that you need radars and ladders, right? It is how to do it in the right way. So what comes out of it are two things. One, it is going to be the right way to do autonomous vehicle. Second, and even more importantly, this allows us to migrate technologies from autonomous driving to driving assist. Because you cannot migrate laser scanner technology to driving assist. Even if you are very, very optimistic, sensors that cost today tens of thousands of dollars and in the future will cost $1,000 and you need many of them, they're not going to play a role in high volume driving assist. What's the lowest cost sensor that you can imagine? $20 and you have a very, very high quality camera, right? So if you want to influence the evolution of driving assist, you need to go through the difficult path. And that difficult path is to develop an autonomous car, a full stack using cameras, and then you can start migrating technologies back to driving assist. Okay? And that will allow us also to influence the evolution of how driving assist should look in the future. Okay? So this is a very strategic thinking. It achieves two goals. One, it is the right way to build an autonomous car, creating true redundancy. Another way, it is the only way to affect the evolution of driving assist. Mm-hmm. Current setup of 12 cameras around the car. If you go to our booth, you can have a VR system that you'll see everything in 360. When you move your head, you'll be able to change the perspective. So 3 cameras in front. This is part of this production system that I mentioned with BMW. Then 2 corner cameras facing forward, 2 corner cameras facing rear, a rear camera, and then 4 parking cameras. So altogether it gives us 12 cameras. And this is it. There's no other sensor in the car, just those cameras, no fancy GPS, nothing, only this. So let me show you just a clip. Later I'll show you a bit more clips. What you see here is inside the cabin, overlaid all the visual perception on it. And what you see on the right is the top view of what's really happening under the hood. I'll run it again so that you can see what's going on here. So let's run this again. So let's focus only on the right-hand side. The blue car is the autonomous car. It's approaching a junction. It's giving way to the car. Red means that it's giving way, and then another car and simply goes. Then there's going to be a pedestrian that jumps in, and so you see all of this from the top view. So all of this is done by cameras. And when I mentioned about 3D, this is what you see on the right-hand side. The right-hand side is a 3D display. Everything is located in 3D, and you need to be able to do this only with cameras, and this is what makes later in the presentation. So the compute platform, yeah, by the way, I don't have the board. Tzachi, where's the IQ5 board? Would be nice to show it. I have only a picture of it. Okay. IQ4, I just mentioned, was launched 2018, production vehicles. IQ5 was sampled a few weeks ago, so December 2018. It's about 10 times more powerful than an IQ4, runs on 7 nanometer, 24 tera operations per second for deep learning. I have here a bit of statistics. We have already 8 million units over life orders for IQ5, what we called an open IQ5. Serious production starting from 2021 with a number of customers. The one that we mentioned in the past is BMW, but we have several more, and it is based on multi-CPU, these are MIPS CPU, and multi-cores, accelerator cores that are the hallmark of design of Mobileye over the years. It's a number of different families. Each family is focused on accelerating a different type of computing. There are also cores accelerating deep learning as part of it. So altogether, it's a very, very powerful chip, very, very low power consumption. And this is but it's designed in a way that's also relevant for driving assist. For example, in those 8 million units that I mentioned before, the IQ5 is on the windshield. Okay, none of our competitors, when they talk about their behemoth chips, they don't even imagine that something like this can sit on a windshield. IQ5 sits on a windshield. Okay, this is the first board. This is with Aptiv and for supporting the BMW 2021. It's a level 3 system called HAD, Highly Autonomous Driving by BMW. And this is the first board with an IQ5. So the IQ5 is this silver chip there on the right-hand side. Okay, so this true redundancy, and this is why we're insisting on developing, a full stack capability for cameras. Right, one is the right way to do autonomous driving. Another way, we can migrate back to driving assist. So let's talk about the other component of autonomous driving, and there we see safety and scalability. And when we talk about safety, there's two types of safety. Normally, people talk about functional safety. What we are talking about in the next few slides is about nominal safety. How do we design the system in a way that we can provide guarantees related to accidents? So last year I announced our. We have been evangelizing it during the past year, and I'll show you some success on evangelizing it, working with regulatory bodies to standardize it. So what it's all about is how to define in a scientific way the balance between agility and safety. Right? So how to define in a scientific way what does it mean to be careful? Because you can adopt all sorts of definitions of carefulness that are really useless. Right? For example, I can define what it means to be careful in a way that it's not useful, for example, but it seems legitimate. Say I'll define that being careful means that when I change lane, I should not affect the motion of other road users. It seems a completely legitimate way of defining what careful means. I change lane, everybody moves, but can you imagine a territory in which this can work? No, really. Even in California, which is kind of the most laid back, when the road is dense, you cannot do that, right? Somebody needs to slow down when you change lane. So you need to define carefulness in a way that's not only legitimate, but also useful. And this creates a tension. How do you define something that is useful? Because useful meaning that it could be an accident. If somebody needs to slow down and that someone doesn't slow down and there's an accident, what do we do, right? So RSS is all about defining it in a way that is both complying with the common sense of human judgment. Second, it is useful. It can allow agile driving. And third, it can be implemented in a machine. Implemented in a machine means that when I perform an act, all the future. Rolling out the future meaning that there's a butterfly effect. I'm doing an action, then there's a reaction, then there's another action, another reaction, then there's an accident. And that accident is tied to this innocent action that I did right now. So in order to verify whether my action is safe or not, I need to roll out the complete future, and that's impossible, right? So you need to define your model in a way which complies with the inductive principle, so that you can make a local decision and know that that local decision will never lead to an accident. So this is all about RSS. I talked about it last year. And you can read all about it. I want to update where we're standing with evangelizing RSS. But first, how is RSS inside? We define it. We break it down into four buckets. The first bucket, we call it a strategic decision. A strategic decision is I want to change lane. That's a strategic decision. Next bucket is a tactical decision. Tactical decision, I already decided I want to change lane. I need to make a decision which vehicle I want to give way and which vehicle I want to take way. And the gap between the vehicle I gave way and the vehicle I'm taking way is the gap that I want to enter. So it's a tactical decision. And this tactical decision can change instantaneously. I decided I want to take way from that vehicle behind me, but that vehicle behind me is not allowing me to take way. So I'm not going to force it, right? I can create an accident. So I'll change my mind. I'll give it way, and then I'll try again. And so it's something that it's a momentary decision. So both a strategy engine around the strategy and tactics. Then there's the path planning, and the path planning is where RSS is plugged in, and it's meshed into it, such that a path will never be generated such that it will violate RSS. The path will never be generated in a way it would bring the car into a dangerous situation. And RSS defines what it means to be in a dangerous situation. And then the fourth bucket is control. I have already the path. I know that this path is not going to lead me to a dangerous situation. How do I implement the steering and the brakes and so forth such that I implement this path? So let me show you some examples. So all the examples I'm showing is from this 12-camera system. There's no other sensor in the car. And every example, I'll show you also how things, you'll see the agility of things. So let me run this example. One moment, let me go back. So you see that the car is blocking traffic, this car that is stuck there, and all other vehicles are kind of finding their way, changing lanes. And you see our car, this is the blue car with the logo on top of it, is also there, and it's struggling its way and doing it quite in an agile manner. We did a simple experiment. Let me stop this for a moment. We did a simple experiment where we hid the logo and let people view this clip in order for them to identify which one was the autonomous car. Now this is from the same, but from inside the car. Let's look at it and then look at it again. So what's really interesting to look is on the right-hand panel where you see things in 3D. So let me run this part again. So before I run it, I'll just remind you the color coding on the right-hand side. So a bounding box, which represents a vehicle, a bounding box is red when the autonomous car decided from a tactical perspective to give it way. A bounding box is green when the autonomous car decided to take away that vehicle. So changing lane is finding a gap between a red and a green. Right? Now you'll see that this decision of what is red, what is green is a momentary decision. It could change its mind because a client. Okay? So let's have a look. Okay, so have a look at the right-hand side. So the blue car is the autonomous car, so it's giving way to the red car. It was flashing green, but then it flashed red. This green, and now it enters. Okay, and you saw from the video itself that it's really struggling its way, and you saw it also from the drone. It's not an easy maneuver. Let's look at another typical things that we see also. This is again in a similar setting. But now you're going to see a pedestrian coming out on the road, and the blue car, the autonomous car, because it saw a pedestrian, it made a decision to start changing lane because it knows that this car is stuck. You see the pedestrian in the video. Also, it's a struggle. It's very, very densely packed, and it does it successfully. Let's look at other setting. This is an urban setting. Where we'll reach a junction, and in the junction you need to give way. There's also a pedestrian crossing. The pedestrian will be crossing right now, and then the autonomous car continues, and then it needs to give way for the cars on the right-hand side. And then it smooths itself in, and the next of the remaining of the clip is to show how those and the overlays of the perception, both the parking cars and the moving cars, the drivable path information. Right, it knows about the pedestrian, about the cars on the side of the road, and it will make its way through the junction. In this clip, there's going to be some blockages. A truck is blocking the road. This is a bit tricky because you need to know whether this is a traffic jam, so you need to simply wait patiently or to overtake. So based on the behavior of other road users, you can make that decision. And you saw that made decision kind of very well. It makes a decision. It did it in a very agile manner, and here it is under the hood, as you see it moving its way. I think this is the last one, again from an urban setting. Here it's, the other cars need to give way to the autonomous car. So the bus is going there, and then this small car coming in, if you're not assertive, it would have taken our way, right? So you see that our car, autonomous car, is behaving very, very human-like in the way it's driving. Yet, given this RSS layer on top, it does it in a way that we can guarantee will not create an accident. Okay. So in terms of industry acceptance of RSS, as I said, for the past year, I'm proud to say that we had quite a lot of success. So this is the formal success. Underneath, there's lots and lots of emotion, new announcements that would be made in weeks. So first is Valeo, one of our tier one partners, very strong tier one partners. We have lots and lots of business with Valeo. They are formally joining, evangelizing and continuously working with us on RSS. Baidu has made the announcement a few months ago, and now they have already announced that in their open platform, code of RSS is already integrated in their open platform. And I think the biggest one is the China ITS, Intelligent Transportation, the Chinese Intelligent Transportation System approved a proposal to standardize RSS. For the Chinese, we have RIO. RIO is a government agency. NIO is one of our OEM partners. We launched with them also IQ4 system a few months ago. Autonavi, Huawei, and so forth. And additional partners are joining in. So this is an example of an influence on a regulatory body. We have major discussions with the EU Commission, with the EU NCAP, with NHTSA, NTSB. I believe more progress will be made there as well, including with additional OEMs and additional tier one partners, because RSS is really the right thing to do. It has nothing to do with Mobileye. It doesn't promote Mobileye's technology. It doesn't say that you need to have a camera system in order to make this work. It doesn't say that you need to have a Mobileye policy algorithm to pay that will elevate all actors simultaneously to enable autonomous driving. Next is our mapping, our crowdsourced mapping. And talk about crowdsourced mapping, just to remind everyone in a slide or two what we're talking about. We are leveraging the fact that almost all cars on the road today, new cars, have a front-facing camera, and the majority of them have a Mobileye chip powering that camera. And if the Mobileye chip is an IQ4, it means that we have sufficient computing power to add more functionalities, and that functionality is harvesting. We extract landmarks from the scene, we extract lane information, drivable path information, send it to the cloud, and we send them back to cars to power level 2+ or autonomous driving. And we announced last year or the year before contracts with Volkswagen, with BMW, with Nissan, and since then we have lots and lots of activity with other car makers in that domain for making sure that the driving assist future driving assist systems will have this harvesting capability to send data to the cloud. Here's a clip just to remind how things look like. I'll stop it for a moment. What we see on the left-hand side, all these yellow rectangles are landmarks. So these are landmarks that the system, during harvesting, sends to the cloud, and during localization, in real time, identifies from that's been harvested. The line information is the map content projected back to the image space. So if that lines are aligned with lane marks, it gives you a sense of accuracy. And the accuracy here is few centimeters. It's very, very high accuracy. On the right-hand side, it's the same data, but on Google Earth. So the circles are the landmarks, and the lines are the map data. So you can get an idea of what this looks like. So because landmarks are sparse, it's not that every frame we're looking for feature points. Landmarks are sparse. It allows us to have a very, very efficient, in terms of bandwidth, process. We're talking about 10 kilobytes per kilometer. And that's very, very important, because if we're sending data to the cloud from production ADAS vehicles, right, it should be very, very low cost, very, very low bandwidth. Right? If it was much more than that, no car maker would adopt this. Right? Who's going to pay for all of this? Right? So low bandwidth is also important, because then you need to send maps back to the car. If these maps are gigabytes, sending them back to the car is also a problem. It's cost, right? If you are talking about, very, very small tiles in terms of bandwidth, then you can send them back to the car at negligible costs. Okay, so what are our achievements in this area? So first, we successfully mapped all of Japan highways. This is a project with Nissan and with Zenrin to power Nissan's level 3 vehicles, launching in the very, very near future. So we're talking about 25. It's all in a push of a button. There was no manual labor at all. Once the data arrived to Mobileye, in a push of a button, all the maps were created. And this is compared to the manual labor of making maps today. So this is a very, very important achievement. Here a bit of statistics about, it's not only the number of kilometers, number of traffic signs, number of poles, the number of lane marks, the number of road boundaries. We're talking really big data. We started BMW. BMW launched IQ4 with a trifocal system, but also monocular system. Most of BMW vehicles are launching with IQ4. And here is an example of data being collected in Munich using production vehicles. So this is not our vehicles, it's production vehicles sending data to the cloud. So when we look about this REM, this technology utilization, we see three buckets for it. And these three buckets are commercial buckets. It's not only functionality buckets, but also revenue generating buckets. One is autonomous vehicle maps. Maps to power autonomous driving. This was the reason for inventing this technology. Other one is a bucket which is an example of us migrating technologies from autonomous driving back to driving assist. This is the level 2+. If you have a front-facing camera in the car, the experience of driving assist, like lane keeping assist, like ACC. Right? So this is an ADAS feature using maps that were designed for autonomous driving. So this is an example of migrating technology from autonomous driving back to driving assist. And the third bucket is non-automotive. And I'll spend a few slides about this non-automotive bucket with some new partnerships that we have established. So when we talk about this level 2+, I think I said enough about it. How does it help lane centering? How does it help ACC? when we're talking about level 2+, it's very convenient also to have a driving monitoring, to have a camera watching the driving, understanding near in that area, and because of that, they got a very, very nice functionality of hands-free driving. So what we have done in this area, we leverage the fact that our chips are becoming open, are becoming programmable. Here it's an example of a partnership with Eyesight Technologies. They took their IP, their code, and run it on an IQ chip. In this case, it's an IQ4, but it will also be coded on an IQ5, such that when we go and offer an IQ to customers, it can come with a driving monitor function by a third party. Let me skip this. When we look back to REM, we have also creating a value node of mapping. So our new generation of the aftermarket unit has an IQ4 chip inside and has a modem inside to enable us to harvest, to send data to the cloud. And the aftermarket division has been working with government agencies, with cities all over the world. This is an example of programs we have in these cities, contracts with government agencies, with utility companies, with map companies, to start putting the Mobileye 8 Connect, which is the aftermarket, to generate data. We're talking about a volume of about 20,000 vehicles on the road generating data. So here's an example of RSD. RSD is the packet covering all of Israel, and then we're starting getting information, insights. For example, what you see here, by detecting pedestrians, right? The whole idea of this is the camera is an intelligent agent. The camera in the car understands things. It knows about pedestrians, knows about vehicles, not only lanes and landmarks. So, for example, we know there are two bus stations there. One is packed with people, the other one is not packed with people. So this is public transformation data that we can start collecting using an intelligent agent in the car. Here is information about construction area. We have construction area, we can generate it through sensing. The camera sees that there is a construction area, and then through also information, verifying information about 6 kilometers per hour, and then also the cameras understood that there is here construction infrastructure going on. So we can now know that there is a construction area blockage in this area. So again, this is information that is very, very useful for a smart city type of environment. This is data being collected, different areas from New York, from Manchester, Düsseldorf, Munich. Munich is from the BMW production vehicles. So we are starting to collect data all around the world, not only from production vehicles, but also from the aftermarket. Here's an example from LA, data from LA. It's a clip that will be run. It will be showing pedestrian detection alerts over the day. And it'll be showing this, and the color of the circle, when the color is more darker, it means that the alerts are happening at higher speeds. So it's a more dangerous type of a pedestrian warning. So if we let this run a moment. And we can see where are the hotspots, areas that have more pedestrian alerts. And this is very, very useful information to municipalities to go and fix things. If there's an area that's lots and lots of alerts with pedestrian detection, maybe you add another traffic sign to warn drivers that they should be more careful in that area. In the third bucket of the non-automotive, with Ordnance Survey, it's a government mapping agency in the UK. Where what we're doing here is using utility fleets coordinated by Ordnance Survey. We're talking about potential of many thousands, tens of thousands of vehicles, collecting the data for the purpose of creating an alignment of under-the-road data like gas lines, motor pipes, and above-the-road data like traffic signs, landmarks. Once you create this alignment, you create very, very valuable information that today is very, very difficult to generate. Because when you go and drill a hole in a road, you need to make sure that you're not going to drill a hole of centimeters. But now if you align manholes, you align poles, you align reflectors, and you know their accuracy at accuracy of centimeters, you can then start aligning all the data of underground. And this data is very, very valuable for cities, for utility companies. Right? So here's a clip showing how this would look like. That there's no voice here, but in a moment you'll see what are the layers of data that are going to be collected or harvested. Okay, so one is the data that we harvest today, but in addition, manholes, pavement, overhead foliage, signposts, trees, drain coverage, and so forth. So this really implements this long vision that we have, which the camera list of all those features that we're going to collect. So it's not only manholes, overhead foliage, overhead cable, trees, street lights, and so forth and so forth. All of this is possible today. Today, computer vision is good enough to detect all these things. And we have already a camera and very, very powerful processor behind that camera, so we can detect all this information. And because this information is sparse, we're talking about very, very low bandwidth information. We're not sending images to the cloud. And in the cloud, cloud computing will go and figure this out. All of this is done on board because of the bandwidth constraint. So on board, the system detects all this data, all this information, the semantic information, and going to the cloud, and then going back to ordinate surveys infrastructure, then data is going to be aligned. And this is a very, very valuable information for utility companies. This opens a revenue stream that it's big. I'm even afraid to say what those numbers are until we have a very, very good handle of it. So this is a very, very significant bucket. We're starting with the UK. Of course, we'll also map the UK. We have tens of thousands of vehicles. We'll also map the UK for autonomous driving, for level 2+. But in addition, we're creating this new bucket. Going back to our value nodes, let's look at the fifth value node of mobility as a service system. We are an actor who is a member of a mobility as a service, and there are two achievements that we made. One is we announced that a few weeks ago, we and Volkswagen and Champion Motors in Israel created a joint venture to enable mobility as a service, starting in Tel Aviv and then later scaling up to all of Israel, where the commercial deployment will start 2022. Of course, 2019, 2020, there are many phases of this, but the commercial deployment, meaning driving without a driver, is going to be 2022. You see below the steps starting from 2019 until 2022. In terms of it's Mobileye and Intel, there are many components of Intel there as well. So self-driving system is the complete package. It is the silicon, the software, the perception, the fusion, the driving policy, the control, the maps, the entire stack. Sensors like lasers and radars we'll buy from our partners, the tier 1 partners that supply those sensors. Then there are the vehicles themselves, which will be supplied by Volkswagen. Then there's the fleet operation and fleet control, the charging stations, the maintenance, which would be done by Champion Motors, the third partner in this joint venture. And then the last two layers is about moving people. That's the hailing service will be done by all three actors together. So Mobileye Intel will be of a mobility as a service. We have We have a similar achievement that we announced yesterday with Beijing buses. It's the biggest bus company in the world. Well, coming from China, it's not a big achievement, such a big country, but it's the biggest bus company in the world. And we're creating a similar venture like the one with Volkswagen in China with buses. Let me show you a clip from the CEO of Beijing buses.
女士们、先生们，大家好，我是中国北京公交集团总经理朱凯。今天很高兴能够以远程视频的方式与大家共同见证北京公交集团与摩拜的合作。作为全球规模最大的公共交通运营服务商，我们将以开放、互利、共赢的理念与摩拜开展合作，为推动全球公共交通领域自动驾驶贡献我们的智慧和方案。谢谢大家。
各位来宾，大家好，我是北泰机电的陈清。我们非常荣幸能与 Mobileye 和北京公交集团进行战略合作，共同推动在公共交通领域客车自动驾驶的商业化运营。在此预祝 Mobileye、北京公交和北泰机电的合作结出丰硕成果。谢谢。
The CEO of the Beijing buses. So I'll move this. So the last two slides, and I'm finishing. You know, remember at the beginning, I said kind of the insight is that we can evolve driving assist much more than where it is today. And the question is how can we do it in a way that we can provide guarantees? So when we look about driving assist today, now we have several functions. All of them are very, very good functions like AEB, emergency braking, lane keeping assist, also stability control, electronic stability control that prevents the car from skidding. What we notice is that AEB and lane keeping are emergency functions. So you entered into a dangerous situation, and now the system tries to prevent you from hitting the other car. On the other hand, stability control into a dangerous situation, and then it acts in an emergency way, it kind of prevents. Would be nice is to combine all those three systems into one preventive system, such that your car would never allow you to enter into a dangerous situation to begin with by gentle longitude and lateral braking, because most people don't feel that they are constrained when they have an ESC system. Most people will not feel constrained when the car would gently brake in order to prevent them entering into a dangerous situation. And if you are a race driver and you must feel everything, then disconnect it, right? So the question is how to do this in a way in which you can provide guarantees. And this is what we noticed is the RSS is really providing us the ways to do it. So this is a paper we released last week. It is the following. When we introduced RSS, we talked about a very specific braking profile, a robotic engine braking profile. So now we extended RSS to handle any braking profile, so that with any braking profile, you can then define what it means to be in a dangerous situation. And then we introduced a braking profile, which is jerk bounded. Jerk is the derivative of acceleration. So it allows you to do gentle braking and not emergency braking, and then integrate that into the definitions of RSS. And we also, in the paper, we provided all the math necessary to go and implement it. So what does that mean? It means that if every car had surround sensing so that you can understand all around you, and surround sensing with cameras is enough because we're talking about a preventive system. Guarantees of RSS and apply them to ADAS. The guarantees of RSS says that if all cars are equipped with this system and there are no perception mistakes, there will be no accidents. And we can guarantee it mathematically. So what this gives us, it gives us a horizon, an achievable horizon. Now, building vehicles with surround cameras is not far stretched. Today, many vehicles come with parking cameras. Adding 2-3 more cameras, we can envision a system like this where a total cost is hundreds of dollars. And we can envision regulatory bodies like Euro NCAP and so forth evangelizing it, incentivizing it through star ratings like they did with AEB. But now there is a very clear horizon. There'll be no accidents. Or the accident probability of an accident will be malfunction of hardware, malfunction of the sensing system, which are all, likelihood is a fraction of a percentage. So what we call this Vision Zero. Vision Zero is not our term. It's a term by the Swedish parliament back in the late 90s. But they had no implementation of how to reach Vision Zero. Their implementation was by limiting drivers, by adding speed bumps, limiting our driving experience. Because if we all drive slowly, then there'll be less accidents. But then the throughput of the roadway would be limited, right? Here we're talking about the Vision Zero without limiting the throughput of the road system. It's using real science to achieve that. That paper, we wrote all the math to prove that it is possible, and it's building on top of the RSS that we published a year before. So the message here is that we can create the revolution of Vision Zero, of saving lives, as a separate bucket of the revolution of changing transportation. Changing transportation is a worthy goal, is a worthy revolution. That's one revolution. Saving lives is another revolution, and that can be implemented at the cost structure of driving assist. Cost structure of driving assist is hundreds of dollars. It's not thousands, it's not tens of thousands of dollars, and we can do that. I think this is, if there's one take-home message from this long hour, thank you.